Hola, I'm Jorge Ramos.
And I'm Paola Ramos.
And this is The Moment.
The Moment, we're talking to you today from Miami.
Eso es. Viva Miami.
Viva Miami. And we're in Miami because we are interviewing Mayor Eileen Higgins from Miami, who's making history. She's broken many records at this point. She is the first woman to ever hold this position, which is actually crazy. She is the first non-Latino since 1996 to be mayor of Miami. She's also the first Democrat in nearly 30 years to hold this position. And so, of course, there's a lot of people wondering how she did it. How Mayor Eileen Higgins was able to win in this red state, particularly at a time when Donald Trump's rightward shift was felt very aggressively here in 2024.
And at this moment, it is really important because we're talking to her within her 100 days in office at a time when there's a list of billionaires, Paola, who are coming to Miami, when the presence of Donald Trump is being felt everywhere, as well as ICE agents that are patrolling the streets of Miami. And of course, whenever there's a crisis in Cuba or Venezuela, we feel it here in Miami, locally. It's local news.
So, she's dealing with a lot of things. She's juggling a lot of things. There's a lot at stake for her. And I think we had a very thoughtful conversation with her that really gets us inside of her brain and helps us understand the way that she's governing a city that, in her own words, used to be pretty corrupt and dysfunctional. So make sure to listen to this episode, and also make sure to check out this episode on our new YouTube page. Just search The Moment with Jorge Ramos and Paola Ramos. You can check out this episode and every upcoming episode. Please watch us there.
La alcaldesa Higgins, cuando regresemos. Alcaldesa, gracias por estar aquí. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
So, vamos a empezar.
Claro.
Oficialmente, welcome to The Moment. Siempre se te olvida decir eso, welcome to The Moment, officially.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
So I want to start by congratulating you because you are the first woman to hold this position. You're also the first Democrat in nearly 30 years to hold this specific position as well. So something clearly, I feel like, is changing in Miami. I feel like 10, 20, even 15 years from now, we would have never been having this conversation. And so my first question is, what is changing in Miami?
Well, I think in our city, we have two things that were colliding during this election year. One is a long history of the city of Miami with a reputation of dysfunction, not being able to get anything done, corruption, commissioners that just sat there and yelled and screamed at one another, and nothing was getting done for the people. And so I was coming into this race with an 8-year track record from my role at the county commission. So in the race, it was pretty easy, right? Everybody talks about housing affordability. I was the only candidate that had built 4,000 units of affordable housing and had 3,000 more in the pipeline. So my track record really built credibility, particularly among crossover voters, Republicans, independents that lean a little more to the right. They knew they could trust me. I had served without scandal. No one had ever, I never had an investigation for ethics or the SEC or FBI. So you have this whole... They were ready for someone competent. They were ready for someone to go to work and work on their behalf. But of course, in this particular year, we're also living in a time of great change. And I call it the politics of trickle-down hatred. We have, from Washington and Tallahassee, these policies that are just hailing down on our community to hurt us. In particular, if you're an immigrant, or now if you're a immigrant who happens to own a small business. And people were ready to have a mayor that stuck up for them rather than dodged all the questions about how do you feel about what ICE is doing and how do you feel about these immigration tactics. I don't dodge any of those questions. I think it's horrible what's happening. I think it's inhumane. I'm a Catholic. I think it's a sin. So they were ready. They were ready for some competence, and they were ready for somebody that cares about them. And
you mentioned corruption. Something, government that was very dysfunctional. Did anything surprise you in these last 3 months? I mean, how bad was the dysfunction?
There's a lot of dysfunction, a lot. And that's okay. I'm an engineer by trade. Dysfunctional processes can be fixed. It's not hard. You just do it. It takes time and you fix it. But let me tell you what did surprise me. It ends up there were employees that had been waiting to have a different level of competence leadership. And so I met with people who handed me a 13-page list of processes that they had wanted to improve, and they had never had a mayor or a city manager that would help them implement those processes, fund those processes, or sometimes you have to change code in order to be allowed to be more efficient. And so now it's just different. I put items on the agenda all the time. If the administration, if they're telling me we can get better, faster, cheaper if we change code this way, I put it on the agenda.
We hear
and the
that you
commission
show
votes.
up to meetings, too.
I do show up for meetings. I'm in the news for that. How awful is
wow.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
wow, shocking that someone shows up to do their job, yeah.
So you refer yourself to as la gringa?
Sí, claro.
Sí.
La gringa comisionada, ahora la gringa
Con acento
alcaldesa.
cubano casi también. O algo.
Because if I remember correctly, you lived in Mexico for a while?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from New Mexico, and I lived in Mexico. I was lucky enough. I worked for a Mexican company for many years when I was in the private sector, and then I served
Was
our
that a
country.
tequila company?
It was indeed.
yeah.
El
José
tequilero
Cuervo?
más famoso en todo el mundo,
Yeah.
José Cuervo. Yeah,
All right.
lovely family to work for.
What I found really interesting is that you won in a city controlled by Republicans, and you needed to win part of the Cuban-American vote in order just to be the mayor. So what was the main challenge? Because you were running against a Cuban-American candidate, Emilio Gonzalez.
First of all, I was the only candidate that ran a citywide race. And that has always been important to me in all of my races, to ask for everybody's vote, even if they don't vote for you, right? Because when you win, you're their mayor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have to serve them. And so you have to know what their needs are, what's happening in their neighborhoods, where it floods on their street, what they care about, what housing issues they have. Do they have trees? Are their parks clean and safe? And so I was the only candidate that went to every neighborhood. I knocked on every door. I didn't care if you were a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. And I can tell you I heard the same exact answers at every door. We need to build more affordable housing. We'd like some better transportation. My streets flood. And I'm scared about immigration. And it didn't make a dang difference which neighborhood I was in, what language you spoke, and what party you were part of. And listening makes a difference. People feel listened to. If they're going to cross over to a candidate, like for me, for some people, you have to cross gender. You have to cross ethnicity. You have to cross party. But if you never met that person at their door, they're never coming over to your side. And so that's what I did. We just knocked on every door in every way. And I had a track record of results. I mean, I had told people I was going to build affordable housing, and I did. I told them I was going to expand mass transit, and I'm the only person in the county in like 30 years that got funding for 2 mass transit
So I
expansions.
think people really wanted results.
They trust you.
So it was not a matter of identity, because you were telling us you were born in Ohio, studying in New Mexico,
Yeah.
live in Mexico, Belize, South Africa
Belize
too?
también. Yeah, I've worked in South Africa.
All right.
Yeah.
So you're in a city 70% Latino. Did you ever feel as an outsider?
No. And I'll tell you one of the things about Miami that is so miraculous to me. As you just rattled off, I've lived in many places around the world and have been transited around for work through the private sector or else with the federal government. I have never moved to a place that opens their arms to basically everybody that moves here. You move here and within a week you have friends. That doesn't happen in New York and Chicago and Washington and London and Boston. And so it is really easy to feel part of Miami. I think people want everyone that comes here to feel part of it. And that is part of the immigrant solution. And also we have a lot of migrants that aren't immigrating from other countries. They're migrating away from bad weather. But either way, we are a place where people come to. And that creates a necessity of being welcoming and being warm to one another. And that's a beautiful thing.
I'm really curious about what it was like to campaign during Donald Trump's first year in office, right? Because you're campaigning as the nation, and Miami is really coming to terms with his electoral success, when the city itself is also understanding the effects of that first year, that first term. Did his success change at all your political calculus as you were campaigning? Did that have any impact?
I don't think so. As a candidate and as a human being, I tend to stick to my story and what I want to do and what my vision for the city was, which is a city where corruption is rooted out, which is a city where every person from the mayor on down shows up for work, transforms every single thing we do and way we work to treat our residents like customers, to work on the resiliency issues that have been, quite frankly, neglected in the city, flooding, the climate change things that are coming. And so I just stuck to what I wanted to do and what I intend to do. By the way, what I do in the city other than the immigration issue, which is just, obviously, you've got to stand up against what's happening there. But the actual work of the city, that was my plan. It didn't make any difference who the president was going to be. All those things were true. We can't issue a permit. We haven't built affordable housing fast enough. Our public works projects are delayed in stopping flooding and preventing sea level rise. Those things are true. Whoever the president is for those things is irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little bit confused about what's happening in terms of immigration here, because in the past you said that ICE raids are inhumane and cruel.
Yes.
At the same time, in the city, we have a 287G agreement that basically promotes collaboration between local police and federal agents. So if you're an immigrant here in Miami, who do you believe? I mean, when there's an agent dressed in blue, do you run? Do you answer? Do you trust them?
Here's what I can tell you about the sad fact that the City of Miami's commission signed the 287G agreement. If I had been mayor at the time, we would have never signed it and I would have vetoed it, but I wasn't. The mayor of South Miami, Javi Fernandez, he was in the middle of a lawsuit trying to determine whether or not municipalities actually were required by state statute to sign it. It ends up we're not. But now that we've signed it, the legalities of undoing it are pretty complicated. The only
way... It was signed
way,
before you.
It was
clearly.
signed before me. It had been implemented months before I was. And the only way to get it off the agenda is for the commissioners to put it on the agenda and vote to do that. And they have all indicated publicly to the press, not all of them, there's one or two that have said they'd be willing, but the majority have said they're not willing to do it. So we're stuck with it. But here's what I can tell you what me and my administration is doing. We live in Florida. Doesn't matter where you live. You got to comply with the law. As a local government, you got to comply with the law. So we're going to comply with the law, but we're not going an inch beyond. So we have 1,500 police officers in our police department, and we have 3 that are assigned to pick up the phone should ICE call. So we are not being proactive. We are not doing anything. But if they call, we are now required under the law to answer the phone.
But the other 1,500, what do they do?
Well, they are keeping us safe, which is why we have one of the lowest crime rates in America.
But I mean, if they stop someone, can they ask for their immigration papers?
These are people. Our police department does 2 things, right? And the reason we have one of the lowest crime rates, not just in America but in the world, is we're an intelligence-led police department. Right, and so we have all kinds of technology. ShotSpotter is a great example. Sometimes when you're in a neighborhood, you hear shots go out, nobody even calls 911. We have the technology that actually knows exactly where those shots come, and we're responding to make sure that we are out there and we're finding victims. By the way, we're saving lives because we're getting there so quickly on all of that. So our technology is very good for response, but we are coupling that with 20 years of a track record on community-based policing. And community-based policing is how you build trust. And that's why and our chief is very insistent on making sure that we are only doing what we need to do, which is keep criminals off the street.
So no, they don't ask for papers.
We are not asking for papers. We are finding, if we find someone that's in the middle,
but only those 3 officers.
Those 3 officers are there for the phone. By the way, one of them's in the gang unit and has always worked with ICE, trying to make sure that gangs are not in here.
Now, do you want ICE out of the city?
I want ICE out of the city. I want ICE doing what they used to do, right?
So you don't want ICE agents here? You don't want them?
We need ICE doing what they used to do before they became so repressive. We need them to be going after criminals. They told us they were going after criminals. Now they're going after everybody. They have crossed a line from law enforcement into inhumanity. It is terrifying residents. And I'll tell you what I hear. And people always whisper. They never say it loudly.
Because they're scared?
Yeah, so they'll come up to me and they'll say things like, mi padre, mi sobrino, my mother, my alligator Alcatraz, no sabemos dónde están, we don't know where they are. And they're here, and they are making people afraid. And then, of course, the elimination of TPS. Let's talk about Venezuelans. With the stroke of a pen, boom, you take folks that have been living here, working here, raising families, owning businesses, owning homes here, and at 12:01, they immediately lose their status. But ICE knows where they live because they've been here legally.
Yeah, I mean,
and they just pick them up.
Last year, 250,000 Venezuelans lost their TPS. In that situation, understanding that there are so many Venezuelans in Miami, what can you do as mayor to protect them?
All we can do is try to keep their neighborhood safe, their park safe, the streets safe where they can walk down. And as I told you, our police department is doing what we always do. We're making sure there's no crime.
That makes me think, Mayor, I remember in 2017, so shortly after Trump's first inauguration, I believe Miami-Dade stopped being a sanctuary city. Could Miami and should Miami be a sanctuary city?
It's a violation of state law. There is no ability for any city or county in Florida to ever be a sanctuary city.
Would you want it to be?
Listen, I think it's ridiculous to not allow immigrants to be part of our community and to be part of our economy. Anybody that thinks that doesn't matter to a place like the city of Miami apparently hasn't visited here, right? That's who we are. We are a city of immigrants. And so when you are implementing policies that are tearing families apart, you're actually tearing Miami apart. Our economy's at stake, our humanity's at stake. I mean, just so many things don't make any sense. I mean, I can barely go to sleep at night now that the Haitian TPS item has been elevated to the Supreme Court, because at any moment we could have another over 100,000 people lose status. And 20% of the folks with Haitian descent who have TPS work in healthcare. So they're nurses, some of them are doctors, physician's assistants, home health cares. They work in assisted living facilities. And not only does that mean you've got families without breadwinners, you now have patients without care. Right. This is just willy-nilly. It's cruel. It needs to stop. And I have been, like, you ask me, how can I help? Well, I can tell you how I can help. I have never stopped calling for the restoration of TPS for Venezuelans. Yeah, it was taken away with a stroke of a pen. It can be put back with a stroke of the pen. It is ridiculous to be deporting people back to a place that is not yet stable nor safe when they could be here contributing to our economy.
Yeah. I've been living here for 4 decades, and I never expected to see Cubans being deported back to Cuba, Venezuelans deported back to the dictatorship. So do you think they feel betrayed by President Trump?
I have spoken to some that certainly feel betrayed. Mm-hmm. They have said so. They particularly, I would say, in the Venezuelan community the most, where in many conversations they said, but we all voted for him. We never thought he would do this. But he told us he was going to do this. He wrote it down on page 154 of Project 2025, eliminate temporary protected status. And you have to sometimes listen to what the candidates say.
Have you met him? Trump?
No, I have not.
He was here just a few days ago. He didn't invite you?
Not to my Shield of America event?
Not to my knowledge. No.
Do you want to meet him?
He's the president. I would meet him, and I would discuss my concerns and always put the needs of our community first. And by the way, I do meet with many members of his administration. They have been supportive of a number of projects that are very important to the city of Miami, especially in transportation initiatives. They've been very gracious. They've come down here, met with the Federal Rail Administrator, met with the Federal Transit Administrator. So you have to find common ground. If I can find common ground on infrastructure and transportation with his administration, I'm going to find that. But when I think something is wrong and it's hurting our residents and our economy, you better believe I'm going to speak up. And
So we want to ask you also about Cuba. Just a few days ago, Dictator Miguel Díaz-Canel said that he confirmed that there are conversations between the U.S. and Cuba. So how are you preparing for this new era? Are you afraid of a new Mariel boat lift coming to Miami?
We have to be prepared for whatever happens in Cuba. And I can tell you the city of Miami, also Miami-Dade County, in partnership also with federal authorities, we have initiated a more robust plan, which we already had in place, to deal with, I would say, I would describe these things as two areas. One is, should there be any kind of change that actually brings real freedom, right? Which right now I'm hearing economic discussions, not freedom discussions. Freedom would be nice, in my opinion.
Right.
But we know whatever happens, we're going to have a lot of celebrations, just like we did when Maduro was captured. And so we've got to be, and we've got to be prepared. And so we are. And so we know Little Havana is going to be busy. We know Bayfront Park is going to be busy. We've got other places. And so we're very, very good at managing those big events. You've got to make sure people can get there safely. The streets are safe. You got to have fire rescue people there in case somebody gets overheated or trips. So those plans, I would say, are pretty well.
You're getting ready for a celebration.
We know there is going there. Whatever happens,
celebrating basically.
There will be people gathering, right? Hopefully celebratory, maybe demonstratingly, but either way, people will gather. And you've got to be prepared. You've got to manage those events safely. People have to be able to get there. But on the other end, we have to prepare, and we are preparing for mass migration, which, by the way, could happen in two directions. It could be folks deciding to come from Cuba. It also could be people here who say, let me go get my house back. And
how complex?
It's very complicated. It's also quite interesting because on the water, the role of the City of Miami Police is not, that is the role, managing all of that coming and going is the role of the Coast Guard and the federal government. So for us, we'll be playing with our Marine Patrol and others along the coast should any of these things actually happen. Our job is life safety, right? So we're not going to let anybody drown. We're not going to let any boat go looking out that they're coming or going rickety and overloaded. So that we are going to do life safety, but we are not the enforcement agency. And there's lots of coordination meetings going on to prepare for that. And we stand at the ready. We have to be at the ready. This is however and whatever happens, it's a big deal. And we've been waiting decades.
Forever. And before we turn to affordability, on that note, how are some of your constituents coming to terms with Nicolás Maduro's ousting and the fact that this administration is still dealing with, one would say, the heart of the Chavista government? Like, how are they kind of coming to terms with that?
Most of the folks are still there in Venezuela, right? We have one guy, and I guess his wife, that are more or less gone. And I guess there's been a little bit of movement on freeing the political prisoners, but as far as I know, there's at least 600 people still in jail, still imprisoned without any freedom. So I think people are torn. Everybody, including me, we're thrilled that Maduro's not there, right? I'm thrilled that that guy is no longer in power. But it's another example of, did they have a plan for what's next, right? And that's what worries me about Cuba, right? Sure, certainly we could come up with some kind of negotiating, but then that's the what next. And we're seeing that in Iran right now, right? Okay, let's go in. Well, what's next? Well, what's next is the Strait of Hormuz is choked, and, it ends up basically anybody with a drone can take down an oil tanker.
But this just goes to show,
so
only the mayor.
The plan?
But I guess as you're speaking, I'm just thinking how much the mayor of Miami has to deal with, right? Because you're not just literally governing your city. You're in the middle of all these geopolitical crises, and you're governing a city that many call, right? It probably has one of the highest percentages of foreigners, and so it's a huge weight. It's a huge weight.
So let me ask you, as you know, Miami keeps changing, and there's a long list of billionaires now coming to Miami and big corporations. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Larry Ellison. So there's a lot of money coming in. But how's the city dealing with one of your main issues, housing affordability and climate change?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of interesting because unlike many other cities in America, we continue to see growth, we continue to see investment, we continue to see companies moving here, which is a good thing.
Right.
Why do they come? Is it taxes from New York?
I'm sure part of it's taxes. Part of it is momentum. Right? There's a lot of innovation going on here. They want to be together. They want to innovate together. They probably want to compete against each other a little bit.
To buy the biggest mansion?
Yeah, why not?
But there's
and you're on the water.
There's something in tech happening
there's
here, too.
Something,
it's booming.
It's booming. And so we do have this sense of a momentum. You have a little snowball, and now you get a big one. And So there's something going on. I'm very proud that our city continues to be a magnet for economic activity. But I have said one of my priorities is to make sure that the people who live here are connected to those opportunities. And the city of Miami does not have a robust, comprehensive workforce development program that pipelines the people who've been here forever into those jobs. Because housing affordability is twofold. We're a service sector economy. What is that? Low-wage jobs with low benefits. And but what we know about people that are working in hotels and restaurants who've done it for 10 years or 15 years is they're hardworking. So we don't have to teach them that. That's innate. But how do you get them and pipeline them into these companies? And so that is an initiative that I'm working on. I've been meeting with a number of people that have been doing things like that in Philadelphia and Chicago to bring those sorts of think tanks and put together a robust program throughout the city of Miami. So places like Liberty City, Little Haiti, out in Little Havana, further afield in Fligami, we get our population piped into those jobs because that's part of housing affordability, right? Housing's too expensive and wages are too low. So you got to work on both. And the housing is too expensive piece, the city of Miami, let's say the three of us decided we were going to build an apartment building with 100 units of affordable housing today. It would take us 2 to 3 years to get through planning and zoning. And it would take us 2 to 3 years to get out of permitting. So we would not break ground for 5 years. And then it's a 2-year build. So you got 5 years of bureaucracy and 2 years of actual people with hammers and nails doing what they do.
That's horrible.
Pouring concrete. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So part of the housing affordability issue is we got to get these things built faster. By the way, over that period of time, the costs have gone up 40%. So that's why I talk all the time about permitting reform, which is what I led at the county. When I first got to the county, permitting was like that. Well, the last time I submitted a 12-story building, the county permitting, it was permitted in 3 months. That same exact structure in the city of Miami would be at 2 years. So I know I can make it more efficient in the city of Miami to get affordable housing under construction.
Jeff Bezos says that we should get permits in just seconds with AI.
Well, that presumes you're automating a good process.
Yeah.
Right? Garbage in, garbage out. And I was part of a national task force that set up the first structure for artificial intelligence policies for municipal governments. As a matter of fact, under my leadership, Miami-Dade County became the first county, even before Silicon Valley, to have an AI policy. But the one thing I've learned in that is you can't automate crap. And we have processes that we need to look at. I'll give you an example. There's an affordable housing covenant that has to be signed. If you sign that covenant, you get a waiver of impact fees, which is a good thing to decost affordable housing. But we have like 10 departments looking at that. So it can take 18 months to get a piece of paper approved. Well, it's ridiculous. The lawyers obviously need to look at it. The people who are going to calculate the impact fees need to look at it. And probably the housing department has to look at that. So I can take a year off that process. That gets things broken ground. So if I were to automate that process with AI, it would still be slow AI. It wouldn't be fast in seconds AI. So there's work to be done. Our team is doing it. We just signed, we accelerated a contract that should be done in another 13 months that will be AI enabled to improve permitting. We've just launched 2 new permitting services, same-day permits for homeowners for small jobs. You literally show up. You go from desk to desk in the lobby of our admin building. You want to replace your roof, repave your driveway.
So people are seeing the effects immediately.
Yeah, a gentleman in the lobby was crying. He never believed he could get a permit in the same day to fix his house. So I'm not even at my 100 days. Like we are fixing
You're
permitting.
Feeling good.
We are. I'm not feeling good. I'm feeling like there's more to do.
Can we?
I want to ask about property taxes. Is it a good idea to get rid of property taxes?
Local services have to be paid for, right? Right now, property taxes pay for your police department. That's why we're one of the safest cities in America. They pay for the fire department to come in case your house is on fire. They also pay for all the emergency personnel should your grandmother have a heart attack, all of our parks, all of our flooding projects, all of our after-school programming. And so there are a lot of things when you begin to explain it to people that they're going to have to decide, do they want less services? I pay them, and I am pleased to have a police department, a fire department, a parks department. I'm glad I get drainage projects.
Well, yes.
And that's what I suspected.
Yeah, you probably want yours to go away. But let me tell you, 70% of the people in the city of Miami rent.
Right.
Yeah.
And they pay their property taxes through their rent.
Yeah.
And they are not homesteaded. So that proposals that are floating around, which some of which are good, really working on senior citizens with, fixed incomes. And I'm fine with that. But we're talking about sometimes the most affluent people in our neighborhoods no longer contributing to city government when people who rent and their taxes are not homesteaded. They can go up every year. And by the way, you think their landlords don't make them pay more every year? They do. So this is a regressive tax. We tax people that don't have homes more than people with homes. And so we'll see what they come up with. I'm perfectly happy if we help some seniors stay in their home. I mean, that kind of stuff we should be doing. But
yeah, before we start wrapping up, I did want to ask about climate change, actually, because I feel like in the last year, we, at least at the national level, we stopped talking about this issue, right? It's become this like theoretical threat. The Trump administration doesn't even believe in the threat. And many say that Miami is ground zero for climate change. And I'm asking, also, I'm thinking about, because you mentioned Zuckerberg, like the New York Times just reported that he bought a $170 million house right in front of the beach. Is that a good idea? Like, walk us through the threat of climate change in Miami.
threat of climate change is real, right? And it's not tomorrow, it's today.
Okay.
Right? We see sunny day flooding all the time inland, right? You go into Little Havana, you're not near the river, right? That's how high our water table is. We have a storm water master plan, which looks at how we need to be able to manage this in the city. It is not funded to the appropriate level, but we're advancing projects, right? We take the highest priority projects and we advance them every year that we have funding. It's interesting you asked this question because this is Climate Week in Miami. And so there's 50 plus activities around our community. Tomorrow, University of Miami is gathering a number of researchers so we can share ideas. That is something that is important to me, to always be talking about climate change and using the actual words, right? Like it's getting hotter, seas are rising, the water is warmer, storms are we have to adapt. And
how bad is the situation though? I feel like we've been, since growing up here, like they would say it's bad, but like where are we now?
Well, I can tell you the water level is several inches above it was when you were tiny and when I was tiny.
Well, yeah.
We certainly have neighborhoods that are flooded more often than not along the coast. And I think the city is doing very well. We've got, particularly along the coastlines up in Morningside and the Grove, we've got huge projects that we expect to get funded through the state to do elevated living shorelines. So huge buffers of rocks that taper down so that we can break storm surge and it comes up. So making our parks be actual water storage devices. The Underline is another project of mine that I redesigned when I got to the county commission, to make sure bioswales. So you can go and places are flooded all around. You can have 5 inches of rain. You walk down Underline Phase 2, it's not flooded because it has been built as a park to actually contain water. So we're just going to have to design differently, build differently. And certainly our building codes are different. Our seawall standards are different. So any new construction is being built for resiliency.
Okay.
So let's just finish talking about the World Cup and football, no? And football.
I'm slowly becoming an expert.
So there are going to be 7 games here in Miami, right? So we want to know if the city is ready, because I still remember Copa America.
Oh, yeah.
There were so many disturbances, and I wonder how the city is preparing for that and making sure also that ICE agents are not going to be at the entrance asking for papers.
Well, I certainly hope that is not the case. The county is in charge of the stadium. So we are playing a role of assistance. There is definitely interagency coordination going on. For us, we also have a 30-day fan fest, which is at Bayfront Park, because I think we all know that it's pretty expensive to get a World Cup game ticket.
$4,000, $8,000. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's about, guess who won't be going to a game? That would be me. But I will be at Fan Fest watching it for free.
Right? I
don't go to things unless I pay for my tickets.
Okay.
So every now and then they're just too pricey for me. That's probably a little. We'll see. Maybe it'll be a game that I'll just can't resist and I'll fork over the money. Yeah. But Fan Fest is the opposite of that. It's a community-based celebration, Bayfront Park. We've never run a month-long festival there. So it's very long. Obviously, we'll be showing the games that are played up at our Hard Rock Stadium, but we're also playing games from all across the the country. So obviously we've got Haiti versus Brazil. That's going to be a super exciting game. So the city of Miami is very, very much focused on how do we get people there? How do we work with the transit to make sure the Metro Mover is open? How do we keep people safe? And then interestingly, it's a 30-day garbage pickup. Like, how do we even schedule the solid waste guys to do that? So there's a lot of coordination that's going on. And then, of course, we will receive, that was one of the things I did do at the county. I co-chaired a World Cup Counties Coalition because it was so expensive for local governments. We needed to have federal funds that could match our security expenses. And I was able to lobby with that coalition, and we got $625 million in the federal budget, which means the city of Miami does not incur those expenses. We're able to get reimbursed for them. And I'll give you a couple examples. We're going to be getting, I think, another 2 or 3 drones, because that will really help us. Because if somebody calls and says, we've got a lady that's injured over here, we can get a drone from our police headquarters building there in 2 minutes because there's no traffic up in the air. And we can say, oh, yeah, she's okay, or her leg looks broken, but she's breathing.
Just with a drone.
With a drone, yeah. So we've got a couple more of that'll help us with FamFest. So that'll be our primary thing. Is just we're the host of the less fancy, but more affordable.
And the team that you're rooting for? Will you
Yeah.
get in trouble if you tell us what team you're rooting for?
Okay, I have real trouble with my teams. I obviously always root for Team USA.
For sure.
But I also vote for El Tri from Mexico because I've lived in Mexico and I'm from New Mexico.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm Irish, and my mother would probably kill me if I don't root for Ireland. But I don't think they're going to get in, so I might only have 2 teams this year. I'll find out on the 31st of March if Ireland
will
is
have the
in.
same team.
Yeah, alcaldesa, muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Such an honor.
Thank you
truly.
so much.
Okay, Dad, so you've been living in Miami since 1986. You've been here for a long time.
Yeah, 40 years. They brought me here. I was doing a local show in Los Angeles in Spanish. Then they brought me here to do the national show in the morning. So I still remember Miami having to wake up very early in the morning just to get for the 7 a.m. starting show.
And when I think of Miami, I also think of my Cuban grandmother who never learned a single word of English in this city. And so I'm saying this because were you surprised that a non-Cuban, non-Latina could ever reach the status of mayor of the city?
I think so, especially in a city where 70%, 7 out of 10 people here in Miami are Latinos, no? And they basically controlled the city when it comes to politics, to sports, to media. There was an executive on TV who used to tell me that Miami is the only city in the United States where Latinos are being treated as first-class citizens. Yeah. But basically, he was talking about representation, the importance that if it's 70% Latino, then you need Latino representation. But in this case, Mayor Higgins, she's done something incredible.
There's something about her message, right? Which at the end, obviously her leadership is very different. Her voice is very different. But the issues that she's talking about kind of sound similar to the ones that Mayor Mamdani was talking to us about, right? It's affordability. It's housing. It's the economy. So if you close your eyes, you kind of change the voices. It's the same things that are resonating with, and I think that's part of, obviously, her magic and why Democrats are looking at her. She's been able to cross those Trump supporters towards the Democratic Party.
That's what surprised me the most, because I was expecting at a time when Trump is really dominating politics in the United States and when the country is so polarized that in Miami it would have been, just a few months ago, I thought it would have been impossible to elect a mayor that was not aligned with President Trump. And here comes a voice that is the opposite of what President Trump is saying. And that not only is the opposite, but is willing to be a voice of resistance.
But you know what? What I found so interesting is that it's the opposite, but there's no theatrics there. There's no show.
Yeah.
No, there's no flashiness. There's no even like Miami Vice.
No theater.
No theater. And sometimes I think in Miami, that's what you get, right? Like Miami politics comes with the like, it's a show almost. Huh? There's none of that with Mayor Eileen Higgins. She's very calm. She's a problem solver.
Yeah.
And she's almost, I would say, right? She's kind of like a nerd, like a government like nerd. And I think people want that. I think they're craving that.
I don't know if you noticed, while she was doing the interview, we finished, she said, thank you so much. By the way, she speaks Spanish perfectly.
Great.
No, she could have done, as a matter
She
of
could
fact,
have done this in Spanish.
They thought that we were going to do the interview in Spanish.
Yeah.
But anyway, she stood up and then she started talking to us. And while she was walking 3-4 steps, she was already thinking
yeah.
about the fire department.
I know.
There's a building where they need water. They don't have enough bathrooms. Anyway, she was already thinking of a solution for the firefighters department.
Yeah.
Instead of just.
I noticed the same thing, that she's thinking about a million things in her brain. But more than anything, I think she's thinking about efficiency, and I think people really are craving that right now.
Something that also impressed me was that at the end, remember we were talking about the World Cup?
Yeah.
And there are going to be 7 games here in Miami. And then I told her, are you going to be watching? And she said, yeah, maybe at Bayfront Park or somewhere else. I said, no, wait, you're going to be invited. And then she said something really interesting. She said, I only go to places where I can pay for my ticket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So think of this. When you have 2 politicians, one who says, I only go, not if I'm invited, if I can pay for my ticket, and another one who says, oh, yes, I'll accept all those gifts.
That's the contrast right there.
Who would you vote for?
Yeah.
So that image, I think, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So, vamos a escucharla.
Venga.
Muchas veces más. Listo.
The Moment is a production of Radio Ambulante Studios in partnership with iHeart's My Cultura podcast network. Our staff includes Daniel Alarcón, Laura Rojas Aponte, and Lisa Cerda, with help from Paola Leán, Diego Corso, Natalia Ramírez, and Elsa Liliana Ulloa. The CEO of Radio Ambulante Studios is Carolina Guerrero. Executive producers at iHeart are Leo Gomez and Arlene Santana. Pablo Cabrera, Dylan Unger, and Mark Catton also serve as producers. Sound design, final mix, and theme song by Elias Gonzalez. Our hosts are Jorge Ramos and Paola Ramos. If you like this episode, please share the word. Recommend The Moment to anyone who might enjoy unpacking these complicated times with us. If you like The Moment, pero también te gustan los podcasts en español, check out Radio Ambulante Studios. Our shows, Radio Ambulante, El Hilo, and Central are really worth a listen. I'm Miguel Santiago Colón. Thanks for listening.